Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. That's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Hey friends, I'm Jonathan Smith, and this is Jump In with Jonathan, the podcast that makes you think, smile, and take action. Are you ready to jump in this show with me? Let's go. Welcome to Jump In with Jonathan. I'm your host, Jonathan Smith, and today we're going to walk through a subject that touches every single one of us at some point in our lives. It is the subject called grief. Grief comes in many forms: the loss of a loved one, the end of a relationship, a major life change, or even a loss of a dream we thought would come true. It's personal, at times it's deep, and often it's misunderstood. But also something God can meet us in our deepest, darkest valley. We talk about grief on a multitude of levels. People warn us about grief. People tell us when to expect grief. People try to tell us how to deal with grief. But we need to, number one, understand what grief really is. I looked up the definition of grief. Grief is a natural emotional response to loss. It is not a sign of weakness, but a reflection of love, a reflection of an attachment and meaning. It is more than sadness. Grief can include anger, guilt, confusion, numbness, and even at times relief in certain situations. So when you go through grief, you'll experience some of these things that I've mentioned, and that is normal as you go through grief. There are different types of grief. There's what I would call acute grief. It's intense. You show your raw emotions, often right after a loss. You will shed lots of tears. You will explain the heartache to different people of what you are facing. You will be really emotional, and when certain people talk to you, or when a certain name or a certain dream or a certain vision or a certain relationship is mentioned, your heart will crumble and you will shatter in front of them. And a lot of times when you shatter in front of them, you will apologize and say, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to break down. I didn't mean to cry. I didn't mean to go off and say those things." But it's naturally okay to do that, because at that time you are showing acute grief. Secondly, another type of grief that you may show is what I would call complicated grief. It's when the pain remains overwhelming for weeks, months, and even at times years. It seems like there are certain times during the phases of grief. Let's talk about a loss of a loved one. And when you go through that loss of a loved one, may have been passed away for several weeks, but it seems like they just passed away today. They may be passed away for several months, but it seems like they just passed away today. They may have been gone for 20 or 30 years, but that grief is so real to you. It's still like it just happened yesterday or today. Well, the thing about this chronic grief is that is a normal stage of grief. Then you could also experience grief of anticipation, the sorrow you feel when you know a loss is coming. Some of us try to prepare ourselves for the death of a loved one. We try to prepare ourselves for divorce. We try to prepare ourselves for broken friendships. We try to prepare ourselves for major losses in our lives. And no matter how much we try to prepare, you and I will never be able to be fully prepared for that loss. You can think that you are prepared. You can tell people that you are prepared. You can look and say, I'll be relieved when this loss takes place. I will be relieved when this divorce is over. I will be relieved when all of this is going on. And what you're doing is you're building an anticipation to your grief. But unfortunately, you will not be 100% prepared. The stages of grief is what I would assume is a myth, and you may disagree with me on this. There's 5 stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. This checklist of grief was never meant to be rigid. In real life, grief moves in waves, not straight lines. You will never know which wave or emotion of grief will hit you next. You cannot be prepared for which wave or emotion of grief will hit you. Then I look at the body's role in grief. Loss does not just affect your heart and mind, but it can disrupt your sleep. It can disrupt your appetite. It can disrupt your focus. And most importantly, it will disrupt your energy. See, when you go through grief, one of the first things is during the day, everything seems okay. But at night, when you go to lay your head down on your pillow, those thoughts of grief begin to flow through your mind. And then you lose sleep. And then the next thing, because your body is so tired, it isn't craving food anymore. And then because you're so tired and you've not ate, you will lose focus. And then once you lose focus, you'll begin to lose energy and you'll begin to go down a deep, dark path of depression. So that is what I call the reality of grief. Secondly, why does grief hit so hard? Grief rewrites our daily reality. Grief can change our routines, our relationships, and how we see the world. Grief will do one or two things for you. It'll make you a better person or it'll make you a bitter person. The brain under grief, when I look at it, neuroscience shows that loss triggers the same areas of the brain activated by physical pain. Mental pain or mental grief and anguish can just be as hard as a physical, what's the right word I'm looking for here? As a physical pain, even though it just affects you mentally. Grief challenges your identity. You may ask, who am I? What type of person am I without a certain person in my life, a certain job in my life, without a certain relation, without a certain partner in my life? What kind of person am I going to be? At some point in your life, you need to realize that you're going to have to stand on your own 2 feet, that people's not always going to be around, jobs aren't always going to be around, roles aren't always going to be around. So you need to find out now what type of person you are, so that when it comes time to deal with this part of grief in your life, you'll be better to understand it. Also, grief hits hard because it's about connection. We as human beings are wired for attachment, and grief is the cost of those deep connections. Then I look at the unpredictability factor of grief. Certain dates will come up and that grief will hit you again. For example, July the 31st was my grandmother's birthday, and my grandmother's been passed away now for several years. But every year on July the 31st, I get a little bit sad because I miss her. I miss picking up the phone and wishing her a happy birthday. I miss going to her house to see her smiling face for her birthday or Christmas or Thanksgiving. Certain songs will replay grief in our lives. Certain smells, anniversaries, certain locations can trigger these waves of emotion, and it can cause the grief process to arise in our lives. And how you and I respond to that is how you and I are going to either become depressed or victorious in handling our grief. So today you may ask me, how are some healthy ways to move through grief? So if I was to give you a few ways to move through grief, I would tell you, number one, give yourself permission to feel. Avoid feelings only delays the process. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to have moments of laughter in between those moments of crying, those moments of anger, those moments of denial. It's okay to experience all of those raw emotions. Don't be ashamed of it. Don't apologize for it. Don't say, "Oh, I'm sorry." Don't do any of that, but say, "You know what? I'm grieving, and this is how I must handle it." Secondly, talk about it. Don't be afraid to find a group of friends that you trust to share your stories with, or family that you want to sit down and talk to about what you're dealing with. If you don't have any friends or have any family that you can trust, then I would advise getting a therapist, because when you put grief into words, it helps process it. Also, get a journal. Write down your thoughts and memories while you're going through this grief process so that you can make sense of them later on down the road. Also, I want you to honor what you have lost. Create a small ritual, a photo album, or memorial to keep those that you have lost alive in your memory. Now, it's hard to do that with a job, and you definitely don't want to do that if you're going through a divorce, because God knows we don't want to see our exes anymore. But when we think about these things, we need to keep a memory of those that have loved us and that have cared for us, and those that we truly loved and cared for. Most importantly, take care of your body through the grieving process. Make sure that you are getting good sleep. You say, "I'm not getting good sleep. I'm struggling with that." Go talk to your doctor about maybe getting some medication while you're going through the grieving process to make sure you get some sleep. Make sure you eat a nutritious meal. Make sure that you stay exercising, because these things are the basic needs that our body needs each and every day. And these are things that grief can take away. Give yourself some time. Grief doesn't have a deadline. Healing is not forgetting, it's learning to carry the love and memories in a new way. Find creative outlets, whether it be art, music, writing, gardening. Heck, even creating a podcast can channel the energy of grief into something life-giving. You will never know how your story may help someone else. There may be someone else going through the grieving process that you're going through. They don't know how to talk about it. They don't know how to explain it. They don't know how they're going to get through it. But when they hear that you are going through it too, they will realize that they are not alone. Number 4, There are times that grief becomes overwhelming. When you are feeling overwhelmed, you're going to need extra support. You're going to feel when you are overwhelmed that you are stuck in deep sadness with no relief. You will begin to isolate yourself from others. You will have a persistent, hopeless outlook on life. And unfortunately, if you do not deal with it properly, there will be thoughts of self-harm or that life isn't worth living anymore. When you are that deep in grief, it is time to seek professional help. That's why we have grief counselors, support groups, helplines. These things exist for a reason because no one should have to navigate grief alone. As most of you know, I pastor a church. I try not to talk about pastoring in this particular podcast. I keep that for my other podcast called Just the Bible Will Do podcast. But as a pastor, I recommend to every family at time of a death or when someone's going through a divorce to make sure that they have a good grief counselor. Because I found it important that when you talk about your problems, it helps you get through your problems. Several months ago, I had a family come through and they had a death, and I spoke to them and I said, let me encourage you to get a grief counselor. We don't need a grief counselor. We don't need any of that help. We'll get through this ourselves. And I said, that's fine, but I did my job by telling you to get one. And so grief counselors today can help you in a multitude of ways. Now you may say, well, I have faith in God, so I don't need a grief counselor. God gave a grief counselor the ability to listen, to help you understand, and to help you process your grief. And yes, you can have faith in God. And yes, you can talk to God about your problems. But God also gave you the sense enough to be able to sit down and talk to someone else who can give you the advice to get you through this period of grief. There are certain websites, if you were thinking of harming yourself, the National Suicide Hotline, which is 988, if you need to call them in the United States. We have griefshare.org, which is a great tool for people experiencing grief. There are tons of therapy apps. There's tons of online counseling sources. There are tons of YouTube videos and different outlets that you can get the help in navigating your grief. Now I want you to look at the long view of grief. We looked at the short view of grief. I want you to look at the long view. Grief over time changes. It will never fully disappear, but often it transforms from a sharp pain into a softer ache. You're not getting over it. The goal isn't to erase grief, but to weave grief as part of your story that made your life better and not bitter. Growth through grief. Many people will find a new strength, empathy, and priorities after loss. This doesn't minimize the pain, but it acknowledges that life can still hold meaning. As you go through grief, remember that grief is proof that you have loved, cared, and connected. It is one of the hardest journeys we take as human beings, but it is also a journey that will shape us in who we will become. In closing today, I want to remind you, you do not have to be strong every day. You do not have to have all the answers to all of the questions. All you have to do is take one step at a time and one breath at a time. And if today is a heavy day, remember it's okay just to get through today. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Thank you so very much for spending time with me today. If this conversation has helped you, please share it with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone in their grief. And if you like more discussions like this, please be sure to follow at Jump In with Jonathan for future episodes. Until next time, take care of yourself and give yourself permission to heal. Thank you for listening to today's episode on Jump In with Jonathan. And keep in mind that life is better when you jump in. Have a blessed day.